Welcome to the Competitive 40k podcast, brought to you by Vanguard Tactics. 40k codex analysis, list building, strategy development, game theory, mentoring. Our mission, to help you become a better player and to raise the level of the game both on and off the tabletop. Here's your host, Stephen Box.
Welcome to the Competitive 40k podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Box, and this is episode number 18. Today, I'm joined with Jack. How you doing, Jack?
All good, Stephen. Happy New Year.
Yeah, Happy New Year, I suppose. Yeah, we recorded our last one, obviously, the in-between, didn't we? The Christmas and New Year period. So, 2020, here we are.
Oh, 2021.
Well, that one, whatever. Yeah, 2020's gone, 2021, here we are, should I say. Anyway, how was your Christmas and New Year, Jack? Did you have a good one?
Absolutely great. Had 2 weeks off work, completely chilled out, and just got really into my Warhammer, just looking into latest updates and watching lots of battle reports and things like that, and just keep myself up to date with the hobby, really, and relaxing.
Nice. Yeah, I had to do the same, really. I actually got loads of hobby done over that time. I was, last year was crazy busy with Vanguard Tactics, so I really needed some time to just kind of deload a little bit from work, I suppose, or what is my new job of Vanguard Tactics. So yeah, I did get some good hobby done, had a great time, and very excited about this year to come. Got some fantastic things in the pipeline, which I'm really excited to share. But in today's show, what we're going to be really covering, as you can tell by the title of this podcast, is the January 2001 FAQ review. So we were given a little gift by Games Workshop.
A huge gift.
A huge gift this week by Games Workshop, and very excited to see, obviously, what's in store in our discussions, because we're going to be covering today the implications, because the implications are very important. So this is implications of your list, your opponent's list, the overall meta, our general feelings towards the game, and is it better, is it not, is it an improvement, is it a step backwards? So this is really going to, this show hopefully will give you a really good idea today of, what's actually changed, but most importantly, the implications. And as always, you can head over to our blog page and you can check out all of these show notes for yourself. So if you want to have a quick look through, you can simply do that. So yeah, we're going to be covering the 5 main sort of changes in the books, and discussing all different aspects, and ultimately all of those things combined is what you need to know in order to understand how the game is evolving and changing, and hopefully for the better. Yeah,
it's really exciting stuff, some of the stuff that's come through, so I can't wait to get stuck in and talk about it. But before we move on, is there any exciting updates for Vanguard Tactics coming into the new year?
Yeah, so Vanguard Tactics welcomes 2 new coaches.
Great. Who we got?
So we've got Logan. Now, Logan is somebody that has been with Vanguard Tactics since the very beginning. He was on the LVO prep program I ran last year and is a true ambassador for the game. He has, to the point where I've received emails about his conduct, and just to show, what good spirit he plays in and how he represents Vanguard Tactics in the right way. He's extremely knowledgeable, and it's fantastic to bring Logan into the fold. He's really passionate about the game, and cannot wait to get him on the podcast as we kind of sort of dive in more into what he's, really, really good at, and where he really likes to look at things like efficiencies and what's effective and all that good stuff for competitive play. So, Logan, congratulations. It's great to have you on board. And then the second coach is Aaron. Now, Aaron, again, he's been on the academy for the last year, and I thought, this is somebody that his name is constantly being brought to my attention. Thanks to Aaron for giving me some help, and our community is so good. It is just an absolute pleasure to be a part of, and a real treasure of Vanguard Tactics is our community. It's full of like-minded people who, maybe don't get a sense of community elsewhere, just like our community. And the community is all about like-minded people who want to play the game in the right way, who share and respect, one another, and they can really learn from each other. And Aaron's just one of those people that's give. He never asks for anything. So I reached out to him and said, look, Aaron, I'd love to bring you on board as a coach. What do you think? And he kind of was like, yep, I'm in. So, Aaron is a fantastic orc player. That's his main speciality. So it's going to be great to bring him on board. And also he's quite local to us. So hopefully when we get back out of lockdown, we can start streaming some battle reports and stuff. And I know you and Aaron have become quite good friends recently, haven't you? So very excited for the team to gel.
I threw myself into the Vanguard Tactics community over the Christmas break, and it was really great to invest a bit more time into it, and got talking to loads of the guys. It's such a great group of people who are having really interesting conversations about competitive play and hobby aspects and things like that. And it's an absolute hive of activity. It's great. Any time that you want to ask a question or talk to anyone, there's always somebody there. So and a special thank you to all those guys there who've been helping me over the last few weeks.
Yeah, because you've really dived into Discord, haven't you? And Discord is something that you probably weren't very kind of comfortable, I would say, with before. Like, it's not really a social media you've used in the past, right? But since getting a new computer and diving in,
100%. Yeah, it's absolutely great tool, Discord. Absolutely loving it. So, great. And I know that yourself and Joe have been very busy on the hobby table as well, haven't you?
Yeah, so I think this week alone I've painted 10 Harlequin bikes and 40 Harlequins.
Nice.
Diamonds included. So, and over the Christmas holiday I finished off the Slanesh Chaos Space Marine Army. Joe's been helping out on that as well. And then also he's now working on the Death Guard army. So,
and he's doing a few little updates to his personal Dark Eldar as well. So I know at the moment we can't stream, but we are gearing up for when we some of the measures in lockdown kind of ease up, and we'll have all the new armies kind of updated and ready to go for when the codexes eventually drop.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of those other things I would quickly say. Obviously, it's immensely gutting to be put back into lockdown again. Now, obviously, because myself and Joe do derive our income from Vanguard Tactics, and it is essentially what our livelihoods, depend on, we are able now to luckily film once a week. Obviously, all the other work that we can do from home, we will be doing at home. Painting, editing, administration, social media, blah, you name it. We'll be doing that from home, but we will be meeting up once a week, obviously using all the protective equipment that we normally do to ensure that we can still produce some content, whether it's for VT TV or what was known as VT Plus, and also obviously the Academy, and at the end of the month, the No LVO that we'll be playing in. So very exciting things to come up. So should we crack on with this FAQ then, Jack?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we've summarised the FAQ into 3 key sections. So the first section is the mission pack. Then we're going to talk about some of the rules changes buried within the codex updates. And then the points changes that also come from the updated field mandatorium as well. So, Steve, do you want to get us started with the mission pack? Let's go through some of the big changes there.
Yeah, so the first biggest change, no pun intended, is the first turn. And it is now simply the winner, whoever wins that roll-off, goes first. Now, you might be thinking, but I really liked picking, or blah-de-blah, I like the choice. Well, I actually think, and I played about 20 games testing this out, and I absolutely love it. It just really speeds up the initial part of the game. And also it means that you need to build a list that can go first and can go second, because previously, because there was such an advantage going first, a lot of people would immediately choose to go first. So in which, if you were somebody that just built a list to go second, then you didn't care if you if your opponent went first, and actually you were playing to go second. And also this comes into effect and combines with the next change that we're going to talk about, because obviously, Games Workshop aren't going to want any person to be massively rewarded for going first or second. There needs to be some level of balance. So I think this is a fantastic way of speeding up the game at the initial stages, and also making sure we've got really well-rounded lists. What do you think?
Yeah, I really like it. I think it takes you back to your list building straight away, that you need an army that can flex to go first, go second, so maybe a little bit more mobility in your list, or infiltrating units as well. They all get added value. I think it's really exciting. I'm looking forward to really trying that out, but I think that's a positive change of the game.
Yeah, so what sort of, so that's what's happened. So now let's look at the implementation. What should people be looking out for, Jack, in their rules, which could really help them with this situation where they don't know if they're going first or second. So what sort of rules, interactions are we looking for in our codexes where you think I could put that in place and this is going to help me out? So what's become more valuable?
Anything that can redeploy pre-game.
Yeah.
Once you know when the first turn's gone, the value of that's shot up, which is good. Because it's unique ability on certain factions and stratagems and stuff like that. So that's a really good advantage.
So a few interactions. If you haven't opened up your codex in a while, you've maybe been laying a bit dormant. But guys, get excited about it. The change is big. So Ultramarines, they can redeploy units. Eldar, they can redeploy units. Harlequins can redeploy. Orcs can redeploy. Anything else that we've missed? The Catan, the Deceiver.
Yeah, the Deceiver can, and I'm sure there's others buried away.
There's Warlord traits in the Space Marine book as well.
Yes, yeah.
So, super valuable powers and abilities that you need to be looking for. Any others?
And I think at the moment you could easily build an army that plays second. So it could be, you could hide it behind ruin out of line of sight, and if you win that roll off, you always choose to go second, basically. But you can't really have an army built like that anymore to that extent. You need to have the ability to make use of that first turn if you're going to have it, because 50% of the time you'll be going first.
Yeah, and this is actually something that I think we've seen a bit of a switch in 9th edition where at the beginning everyone was like, oh, it's a gun game, everything's about shooting. But in actual fact, I think 9th edition is about combat, which is probably why I like it so much. But the fact that you cannot choose, it was extremely strong if you're a good combat player to go second, because like you said, Jack, you null deploy your opponent, they can't shoot anything, they can't kill anything. So your opponent, whether they're Tau, Admech, Guard without, artillery, wastes their first turn.
Or another combat army.
Yeah.
Because they can't come and charge you. So if they move, they can't move into the mid-ground because you charge them.
Yeah. So now it's forcing you to have to declare and put some units maybe in a little bit riskier positions because you don't want to lose the foothold in the game. You don't want to lose that positioning, because if you win that roll-off, you're going first. And I think the other thing that people really need to look out for is anything that can pre-game move. Super
Death Company.
Yeah, super powerful. We'll talk about Death Company. They had a slight change in their FAQ, and I could probably do an episode just on the Blood Angel FAQ. But obviously, it's one of those things that anything can pre-game move. It's a similar sort of like repositioning style. So I'm for it, you're for it. I think the other guys at VT are all for it. So good, positive change for that first bit. So what's the next one that changed then, Jack?
So this one I really like is if you go second in a game, instead of scoring your primary points at the beginning of your turn on the last turn in turn 5, you score it at the end of the battle.
And why is that important?
So I use an example of me playing Tau. So typically how Tau games go is you're a slow burner. You start slow on terms of the objectives while you chip away your opponent and kill them. And then at the end of the game, you then jump on to all the objectives and things like that. If I have the second turn now with my Tau, you pretty much can guarantee that 15 points. And I think quite a few builds will be able to gain 15 points in that primary at the end. Yeah, looking like at Death Guard, for example, slow, steady, durable armies can really hold on to that fifth turn, have enough units and resources available to jump on to those objectives at the end of the game, which previously it was much harder for them to get hold of those 15-point turns because they're typically slower or anything like that, or the person who's gone first is just spread across all the objectives for most of the turns. So I think that's a really positive change, and it tweaks your list, it tweaks your thinking and your approach to an overall game. You've got to, if you're going first, how do you protect that turn 5 15-point primary score in that last battle round and things like that?
Yeah, it's one of those that you can't just... Because what was typically happening is if you went first, not only can you get to the objectives earlier than your opponent, but when it comes to turn 4, if you've scored all of your primary points, what you can actually do is then just leave all of your objectives and kind of bum rush your opponent, push all your units forward, move block them, charge everything, go completely gung-ho with no care in the world. Mm-hmm. And all you're trying to do is literally put some bodies on your opponent's objectives. Now that basically leaves you in a position where you don't, because you don't need to hold more at any longer in terms of the game. Your opponent now, you could literally just, stop them from scoring whatsoever. But now your opponent has chance to pick up any remaining units that are straggling around, jump on those objectives and score a nice big 15 at the end of the game. So what this will end up happening is there will be games in which the person that's going first is just going to win anyway, because they would have either done extremely well throughout turns 1 to 3, and no matter what, the person going second will still struggle to get back into the game. And even with a slight swing on it, it might not even matter. But where it does come into play, or it could be the person who went second's absolutely dominating their opponent, and that will still be the same. But what it does mean is that it will just start to make games slightly closer between the close games that were slightly more in favour of the person going first. Now they'll become a little bit more balanced. So the games at either end of the spectrum where one's smashing the other, that's not going to be affected. And this is something that we've certainly found as well through using this. So it's just making nice, tighter, closer games. And really, when you're going first, you need to consider that fifth turn and how you're going to save units in order to slow down the tempo of the game to make sure you've still got units alive to, still deny your opponent scoring even at the end. You still have to defend your objectives. You can't just run away from them, and otherwise your opponent will use their mobility to jump on them. So I think it's a great change. So what's next, Jack?
So there's been a few changes to some secondaries, which are very welcome. I think that they're a great set. So they've changed 3. So the first one is While We Stand, We Fight. A very subtle change, but important. It's no longer the most expensive model. It's now the most expensive unit, which changes a lot of people's probably desire to take that secondary now, because instead of being characters hidden in a wall of units, it's the units themselves that need protecting.
Yeah, and which is very, very difficult to do. And what we kind of saw was a bit of a meta shift, didn't we? And we've spoke about it before. It's a good strategy to go for an infantry-based list and then just add your characters in, because it was a very good secondary for you to score on. And it also meant that as soon as you took it, your opponent had to try and kill you. They had to go super aggressive in order to deny you those points. But now, if you want to use those big, expensive units, then you're going to not only risk them being shot at or killed, which then you might start to give up those. So I think a well-crafted army in which can utilise those units well, but only get a certain amount out of them and then realise at the point, and this is where the skill general is really going to come into play, is, okay, these are my 3 big units. These are my 3 While We Stand, We Fight. When do I need to play with them in order to get me the damage done? But then when do I need to realise, actually, I'm going to win this game and I need to start to defend. I need to retreat. I need to slow the game down. I need to keep these units alive. And I think that's where the real skill in this secondary is going to come into play.
No, I agree. I think you've hit the nail on the head there. It becomes a skill, more skillful to take that secondary rather than it can be a quite safe bet when you're burying these characters within the remainder of your army. So from what was in certain builds is a very safe, easy, potentially 10, 15 points, now becomes a little bit more risky, but I think with good play, you can still make it work.
Yeah, and to give some other sort of, how was this affecting the meta? Well, we were seeing a lot of infantry-based lists, weren't we? We weren't seeing many vehicles. We weren't seeing many, highly pointed things. Like people would even discuss, I'm not going to take a reanimator in a Necron list because it would then become a While We Stand, We Fight in a sort of infantry-based list, and it would be more expensive than one of their characters. So they weren't taking it. They were like, the reanimator's rubbish because it sort of stops that While We Stand, We Fight. Or the Rhino is a bad choice in a sisters list because all of a sudden it's more expensive than my Canoness. You don't want that. You don't want a game design in which is inhibiting somebody because of a very, very strong secondary. So I think it's awesome. We'll start to see vehicles back on the table, big monsters back, because actually it's all about the unit size that you've got to keep alive. Yeah, nice.
Well, I think you segued us brilliantly into the next change, talking about vehicles and monsters. Massive changes on Bring It Down. I'm really glad to see this change. So basically, the points that you score from the different vehicle brackets have all gone down by 1. So if you kill a vehicle with 10 wounds or less, it's now 1 point instead of 2. If it's got 11 to 19 wounds, you get 2 points instead of 3. And then for 20 wounds or more, you get 3 points, which is an absolutely great change, which allows factions in particular that rely on their vehicles to be able to create well-balanced armies, like Imperial Guard, like Orcs, for example, Tyranids as well with their monsters. It just means that you're less likely just to automatically give 15 points away, which was a harsh penalty for playing those factions.
Yeah, and what we found ourselves in the recent, I would say, few months is Space Marines obviously have had a codex, which meant they had additional secondaries they can pick from, which also means that because Space Marines lists don't typically give away any secondaries whatsoever, because there's never really that many characters to take Assassinate, there's never really, you can't really grind them down and kill more of them because there's not that many units of them. While We Stand, We Fight was super easy for them to score. And also they were, a fresh codex with, 9th edition written in mind, whereas some of the older factions, like let's say Drakari, who have lots of Venoms, and let's say you were running 3 Venoms, and you were also running, 9 Talos, you would instantly be giving away 15 points to your opponent, really even before you've started playing. So not only have you got a slightly, weaker codex, and maybe not that top tier like the Marines are at the moment, but also the mission design was affecting that. And I think Games Workshop have realised that, and they've thought, okay, well, how do we help these armies like Drakari, like Orcs with all the buggies and the trucks and things? How do we help the Nids with all the monsters ensure that it's still a struggle to actually, achieve this? Because you never want to be in a situation where, you're just giving away 15 points. Every single secondary should be hard to score. It should be difficult to max out every single one. We don't really want 100-point victories. That should be left for the top of the world. And by actually making all these things harder, it actually increases the skill level of the game, which then gives us as players more kind of scope to play, to be more creative, to really embed in our knowledge and our learning and our skills, which is obviously what we teach on the academy. And it really rewards that kind of like, I've spent a long time, I've got the reps in, I know how this army functions, I know how to score well with it, and it gives a real sense of rewarding, which is why we played this game, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for that change to bring it down, it means it just opens up options again. If I didn't fancy taking a load of dreadnoughts or anything like that because I was going to give away 12 and bring it down, all of a sudden it might be a more palatable choice to look at some of these archetype builds. So more choice, the better, in my opinion.
Yeah, and by the way, just quickly, if you want to see where we're getting all these information from, I'll put a link into our blog page, all right? But it's all on the Warhammer community. It's all free access. You can obviously go and read those for yourselves. Okay, what's the next change then from the secondary picks?
So it's to Arbor the Witch. So it's done a very similar role that Bring It Down's done. It's not to completely hamstrung a couple of key factions in Thousand Sons, Grey Knights and Demons, really. So previously you'd got 3 points for killing a unit that had Psyker keyword, and then 5 points, and then that's now 2, and then 5 points for characters killed, but that's now 3. So that's a massive reduction in the potential points that you're giving away. In particular, your Grey Knights and your Thousand Sun armies win every single unit to Psyker.
Yeah, which is awesome. And I think we were also seeing a lot of with all of these things, with While We Stand, We Fight, we were seeing a lot of MSU builds, weren't we?
Yeah.
Now, actually, I think what's this going to mean is the change of While We Stand, and also this Abhor the Witch, we might see larger units of those Psyker. So rather than just a bare bones 5-man Thousand Sons unit, we might start seeing 10-man, because they're going to want to keep these units alive to try to deny those 3 points per unit. But again, what a great change, because before you could just kill 3 Psyker characters and you've done it. Great.
Thanks, yeah.
Easy 15 points. So when it's now 3 of them, you now need to kill 5 in probably conjunction with some units in order to max that out. So again, I think what we need to try and do now is really change our expectations on what secondaries is an achievable score for secondary points. So rather than it being, I'm going to try and aim for 45, maybe you just try for 30. Maybe you just try for 10 on each out of those, and maybe that's going to start being a winning score, is just, 40 points on the primary, 30 points on the secondaries, and then 10 points for painting, rounding off the game with a good 80 points, rather than trying to go really risky and trying to get the big 100, because that's probably where some people are just losing the game completely because they're not picking the more conservative secondaries. So yeah, I think we're going to start to see some changes there in the meta, which is going to be awesome for the game. Nice. Up next, we're going to be talking about the rare rules update from the mission pack. So Jack, what is the first most significant change? Because there are a few. We're going to just cover the most significant ones.
Yeah, there's a whole swathe of rare rules updates in it, which helps to clarify certain interactions in the game, which were always a bit of a question mark. Some TOs might make a ruling on it. You might have an impression how it works. But I think they've put a lot of effort in to try and clarify lots of these little nuances in the game, which is great. So that's perfect. And we've picked out a couple that really leapt off the page to us. They've put a lot of work into the fight first and the last clarification and how those two things interact with each other.
Yeah. Because in this rare rule section is like it's, I suppose, GW's way of saying, look, this is what we mean when we say these following things. And sometimes those following things could be said in there could be like one word difference, but I think the rules, there's some people out there who play the game that really like stickler to rules is written, and they're like word by word. It says this, it doesn't say that. And if it did say this, but not that, then it would mean this, but it doesn't. So this is the rare rules section. Check it out and it will say, look, if it says roughly one of these things, it kind of means this. So use it in this way, which is perfect. So I really like the rare rules section of the book.
In terms of the overall like 9th edition design, like this rare rules section is such a great place where they can add these bits in, which previously would be buried in an FAQ of a codex, which became difficult to find. And then all of a sudden discrepancies started picking up. So I think I really like what they've done to include it in this rare rules section. So it's nice and easy to find this stuff. Yeah.
And you've got to imagine, like, I don't even know how many people write the rules for Games Workshop. There could be loads. Yeah. And if one person says fight first, but the other one says fight before, and the other one says fight just before, it's like, well, it all kind of means the same thing. Just fight first.
Yeah, right? and all that is just potentially three different authors that use in slightly different English.
Yeah.
And nothing more, nothing less. But when you start interrogating the words word by word, which we all do, because we love it, we love reading rules and interpreting them and things like that and how we can make them work, that's where these little problems start to appear. But they've now got a great place to fix these in sweep, like just adding that fight first last clarification sweeps up so many little nuances in how those things interact with each other. Yeah,
and the biggest change was the stratagem where you can interrupt combat. So let's say there's two charging units, and the player who's obviously made those charges would go first with both of those units, unless the opposing player can spend the 2 CPs to interrupt that combat. Now, what they have said here is that the interrupt combat stratagem will not be able to be used if another unit is making it fight after all eligible units have fought before it. So that is actually going to override that interrupt. Have I interpreted that correctly, cool. Jack?
Yes.
Perfect. So I just wanted to make sure. But yeah, that's, again, like nice. They're basically saying that unit, you can't fight with it until everybody else has. So even if you've got a stratagem which does this, because we go back to can't overrides can in a lot of instances.
Yeah.
Okay, nice.
Nice and simple. Cool.
What's the next one?
Flyers can now fly off the board, but drop a bomb on the way through. Love it. Give me those burner bombers.
Do you know what? When I first read this, I was like, no way. Because when I first ever read the interaction in the rulebook, I was like, surely you actually have to land before you drop the bomb. But
I remember when we discussed it when 9th edition first came out and flyers could actually fly off the board, and we thought, surely you can't do this. It seems too good, but it's no, it's fine. It's in there now. It's fine. It'd be interesting to see if it does take off. I'm not apologising for the pun.
Mate, you're just dropping knowledge bombs now, left, right, and centre.
Because flyers aren't very pivotal in the game at the moment because they can't score objectives. So actually, giving them a little buff with this ability, you might actually see a couple now, which is good.
Yeah, because when we think about balance, right, in the game of 40k, we got to think of it as a triad. You've got rules, you've got points, and you've got the mission. So when we were just out of 8th edition, flyers were crazy good. And actually, when we look at the rules have changed. Rules and flyers have changed. Okay, they're easier to kill now. So number 1, rules have changed. Number 2, points have changed. They're quite expensive. And number 3, they don't do anything for you in regards to the mission. Well, hardly anyway. So actually, there's been 3 huge nerfs to flyers in this edition, which is why we haven't seen many of them. And this now gives them a little bit extra punch, which might start to bring them back into the fold, which is what we want. We want to see some flyers. We don't want to see 9 flyers. Ben Jones, I'm talking to you, you filthy animal.
Yeah, I've still got my air raid shelter in the back garden from playing Ben Jones. It was but I missed the flight off the board and bomb thing, and just taking your triad there is that. So the Sunshark bomber for Tau, for example, has dropped in points. So actually now, and it can bomb as many times as it's alive. So actually, he can run off the board, and he's now got a buff in his rules and a buff in points. He still can't interact with the mission, but actually he's got 2 of the 3 things to help it along. So actually, is it something to worth consider? And that's just one example of one plane and one book.
The bomber's back, Jack.
It could be, yeah.
So, no, I think it's good. And I think, again, GW are looking at this and going, right, how do we balance this out? Okay, let's make it this. And I think that's cool. I love it. I'm up for it. Let's get some flyers back on the table. Let's get some Void Raven bombers, but no buying Void Ravens, all right? You've got enough Drakari to be getting on with. But anyway, so... I'm
going to let you take the next point.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So, how -1 AP and ignore -1 or minus AP2 works. So this is I'm so glad they cleared this up, because I've seen this ruled in tournaments recently, and I was like, how have you come to that conclusion? I've even had people troll us on videos, and I'm like, no, that's clearly not what's intended here. So what they've changed is, before what was happening, and I'm going to use Space Marines as an example, okay? So let's use the Heavy Bolter. The Heavy Bolter is typically -1 AP, okay? And obviously what would happen is when they were in the Heavy Doctrine or the Devastator Doctrine, they would get an additional -1. So they would be stock AP1 going up to AP2. So if a rule had ignore -1, what they were doing first was, okay, well, the gun itself is -1, I ignore -1, and therefore the gun itself gets stacked back on from the Devastator Doctrine back on after. So it was like, here's my characteristic, here's what I'm stopping, here's a characteristic. It was weird. So in the result, people were saying, well, I ignore -1, but it's of this -2, so it's just an ends up -1. It was getting so confusing with how it was working. Or let's say you're a Thunderhammer, that's -2, and you then go into the Assault Doctrine, which becomes -3 against a unit that can ignore -1 and not -2, and then it would net result just a -1. No. So what they've said is, look, it's the gun and any buffs first. Then, if that is like the same as what you can ignore, then you ignore it. So if you're a Thunderhammer with the Assault Doctrine, which is -2 plus a -1, so equaling -3, your ignore minus AP1 in -2 does not work. It's just flat -3, okay? And again, same with, I don't know, ignoring a -1 power, or -2 with additional buffs. So it's just a case of you take the gun, characteristic, and any buffs first, you stack all that together, and then you look at the next side. What am I ignoring? Can I ignore anything? Do you think that's been a better change, Jack?
It makes it a lot easier to deal with, rather than having, okay, my gun's got this, and then you ignore that, and then I go back to my gun and do this. It's just going, right, here's the total damage of my attack, and all its AP. Then you apply your debuffs to it, kind of thing. So
yeah,
I think it's a good change.
It keeps it simple.
Yes.
Yeah, it keeps it simple, which is brilliant. I think people were trying to use mathematical BODMAS to try and figure it out, and it just wasn't quite maybe intended to speed up the game. And that's what we want is, good game's a quick game, or vice versa. Right, so the next one. number 4 on our list of rare rules changes.
So you can now use anything to deny a psychic action, which was a big area of debate, wasn't it, in terms of denying the witch with a psyker, using stratagems or other abilities to deny it as well. But now it's all been cleared up.
Yeah, so we've got, I'm going to read this out. While the psychic actions are not in themselves psychic powers, they function in much the same way. For all intensive purposes, when a unit attempts a psychic action, this is treated as if they were attempting to manifest a psychic power, and such triggers any rules that interacts with manifesting a psychic power, e.g. rules that enable you to deny a psychic power can also be used to deny a psychic action. Note that a psyker can still only attempt to perform one psychic action in their psychic phase instead of attempting to manifest any other psychic powers. So look, if you've got a stratagem that can turn it off, that's big. That is very big.
Mm-hmm.
So we're looking at Sisters, I think Iron Warriors, Custodes, Black Templars, Khorne Berserkers.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Oh, it's tasty. So, yeah, nice. They cleaned it up.
And I think it's right. I think it's right as well. If you can't have an ability to stop a psychic action, it's almost like a free 15 points for your opponent. It's very difficult to deny it. So having all these abilities to help stop those potentially easy points being scored in certain matchups, I think is a good thing for the overall game.
Do you play Tau?
I do play Tau. I could get a deny on my list if I wanted to.
Anything that can stop psychic powers is something good for the game.
Yeah.
No, I think that's brilliant. Okay, right. So, any implication of any of these into your army? So, out of all this stuff, what's implicating your Tau army, mate?
I'll pick one, which I think is the most important change in all these kind of mission pack updates, and that is the change in the primary turn scoring to if I'm going second to get that 15 points at the end of the game. I think typically that should help me get towards 40-50 primary. No, 40 to 45 primary.
All right.
Yeah, I'll have 50 primary, please. That'll do. That'll help, wouldn't it? But I think that makes a big because I'm struggling to compete in the early turns and to get those hold mores throughout the game. So having that ability to jump on at the end could be huge, and it could convert, minor losses to draws and draws to wins and things like that. As he said earlier, it's not going to flip a game that's one-sided, but it does make those really tight games really competitive and close right down to the end, which I think for me are my favourite games. When it goes right down to almost the last dice roll, it's really exciting stuff.
Did you mean stressful?
And stressful.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Yeah. Okay. So, no, I love that, mate. I think that's awesome. My favourite change to all of this is While We Stand, We Fight. I think the change in the secondaries is great. It just really gives a much well-rounded option for now players, which I think is awesome. So, yeah, that's my favourite thing. So, should we go on to some rules changes?
Absolutely. So, I think something to bear in mind with the rule changes and points that we got new codexes on the horizon. So maybe if some of the things don't necessarily make sense at the moment, maybe they'll make sense when these new codexes come out, or why they've maybe not been changed in points, or because they're about to be released into a codex. So I think if you're, like I say, a Death Guard player and you're a bit disappointed with the changes at the moment,
hold your horses.
Your codex is going to come out and all your goodies should come in there. So keep your heads up, and all should be good.
It's only for a few weeks, isn't it? But absolutely. You got to think, like, they're not going to want to keep changing everything, flip-flopping around, right? They just want to go, right, here we go. Yeah. So, yeah, we saw it at the start of 9th edition, right? So it's going to be the same when every time these kind of interactions come between, changing of points and new codexes on the way, all these things need to be factored in. Okay, so what's the first one?
So cool. So we've gone through. So abilities that trigger doctrines out of sequence then gain the buff if your chapter has an ability that triggers in certain doctrines, like Blood Angels or Space Wolves that trigger in the assault phase. If you have the ability to put a unit into assault doctrine, they have confirmed that you gain the buff for being an assault doctrine.
Yes. So this was something that, the amount of just... Do you know what? I'm in the Blood Angels group, in the Warhammer 40k group on Facebook, and I've seen so many people get so emotionally attached to a rule.
Yeah.
And obviously me and Joe, we're like, right, we're going to play some Blood Angels on stream. So here's a point of contention. Me and Joe are going to sit down like two grown men, or as much as we can be, but, and we're going to discuss what is a fair, reasonable interpretation of this rule. So we'd agreed that they get it, right? That's what we agreed. We stay on the battle report. We are using Savage Echoes from the Blood Chalice, which is a sanguinary priest, and that he gives it that ability for that turn. Now, bear in mind, it's only ability that you can use for turns 1 and 2, because after that, you're in the Assault Doctrine
anyway. Yeah. So I think that one in particular was such a massive question mark. And if you're playing an event, you just go with the TO, with the rules that you asked the question prior to going to the event, because it was so on the fence. But it's great. It's been cleared up now. It's now crystal clear.
But the thing is, people get so emotionally attached to a rule, right? And you never want to be emotionally attached to a rule because, right now it says one thing, but that doesn't mean in 3 months' time it's still going to be the same, right? In terms of GW and wanting to balance the game, they might decide in a year's time that actually maybe we don't want this and we'll completely change it. But if they do change it, it will change for absolutely every single other Space Marine faction, because it's all about consistency in the game, right? They want to keep that consistent approach between all the different factions and also rules interactions. So, like, we've been playing it for years that the, Ultramarines, when they can go into the tactical doctrine, their aggressors could, fire twice, right? Because they count as stationary. So we've been playing that for years. Why would it be any different for Blood Angels? Why would it be any different for Space Wolves? So again, remember, if you're ever unsure on a rule, if you're ever unsure about the rules interpretation, look at what other things are similar for other books, because that would probably dictate the intent of how that thing should be played, okay? But again, just do what the rules say at the time and go with it from there, but never get emotionally attached to a rule. All right? But yeah, I think that's a great change.
And I think we'll jump on to the next contentious one, because it flows nicely onto it. It's the changes to the Tau Master of All abilities, Monkar and Kalyon. I'll cover Kalyon quickly. Great little change. It's now reroll all hits rather than failed, so perfect. That's just in line with what we're seeing on reroll hits now, so that's great. The rest of it stays the same. Monkar has been a debate for ages. And for me, we've talked as a team many times, and we came to the conclusion, no, it doesn't work over the last few months, because we're not sure it could be massive implication of it. So we're playing, and I wanted to play with the worst case scenario.
Yeah.
But now the wording's been changed. It's you can now fall back and shoot from combat using Monkar.
Yes.
Which is, it opens up so many more options and play styles with a Tau, which you're massively missing from the transition to 9th. And I think if anyone, for me personally, I think having an ability to do it once per game with limitations within 6 inches of the commander, comparing to all my army fall back and shooting for free off the back of the fly word, I think it's pretty fair.
Yeah, I agree.
It's still a good nerf. The shield drones have still gone away. They've gone up in points and the rate of fire has gone up. And having that limited but vital access to fall back and shoot, I think is perfectly fair. And it looks like it's completely cleared up now. So I'm a very happy fishman.
Yeah, because it basically says when you come to shoot, if Monkar is in play, you count as not moving.
And it says, and they've added a second sentence to say, and you can still shoot.
Yes. So that means what that allows you to do is advance and still fire as if you didn't, and then also move with heavy weapons and ignore the penalty as well. So it's giving you 3 good, all the normal penalties around shooting with any type of move whatsoever. You're getting out of that, which is epic, which is exactly why I've just bought Farsight, just for 2 Monkars a turn.
Yeah.
Because it is a very strong power. And so hopefully and I think the problem that you had before, Jack, which was really interesting, was you are getting to the table and you're like, this is how I perceive this rule to be interpreted, and your opponent's going to go, oh, nah, you can't do that, mate, and they'll argue until they're blue in the face with you. But now it has been cleared up, so
so that's great, and I think we'll discuss the implications of that in more detail in a future episode when we talk about Tau in particular.
Yep, absolutely. Which is going to be on next week's show. We're going to be discussing all things Tau and how to perform with potentially an underrated faction. So I think that's going to be a really interesting episode for next week for those people that, maybe are waiting for their new codex to come out. I'm as an Eldar player, I would love a new codex, don't get me wrong, or Chaos, whatever it is. So how can we get the most out of our armies? So Jack's going to share some insights around Tau. And then we're going to share some mindset things and other aspects, what you can do in terms of your game plan in order to get the most out of that. So I'm really excited for next week's show. Okay, what's next? The ATV?
Yes, so the rest of these changes are relatively simple compared to those two. Those two. So the ATV and the Apothecary interaction of bringing the ATV back is gone. Happy days. It didn't feel right. We all felt it was going to go away, and now it's been confirmed. That's now off the table.
In short, if it feels too good to be true, it probably is.
Absolutely.
So I'm glad they've made that change. Okay, next up, it says now racks can be taken up into 20-man units, eh?
Yeah, so I know a lot of people in the Dark Eldar groups are getting very excited about this because, I've got my 4 up Invan, I'm toughness 5, I'm a 6 at Feel No Pain. But for me, when I look at that, I go, well, hold on a minute, your codex is due to come out.
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to keep your 4 up Invan? Are you going to keep your 6 at Feel No Pain? Are you going to keep your toughness 5? Going up to a 20-man unit, I would expect 1 or more of those abilities to go away potentially, because that becomes very strong.
Yes. Yeah.
So I think, again, emotional attachment to the 4 up Invan, for example, is from the Prophets of Flesh, from a sub-faction ability. Will Rax retain it, or will it just be on the Grotesques and the Talos, for example? We don't know. But I think, just proceed with a little bit of a caution. I won't necessarily go out and buy 100 racks based on the rules of the Codex today, and you go into 20-man units.
You're a fool,
Jack. It's
Jack.
an interesting change. Yeah.
You're a fool, Jack. I'm buying 120 tomorrow.
Yeah. I'm sure Joe has already.
Yeah. Well, he is a fool, that man. Anyway, so next up, after the rack change to the 20-man unit, what else is next?
You can have Fire and Fade back into a transport. Nasty.
All our chat has been filled with is Ben Jones and his Reapers firing Fade back into a Wave Serpent.
He's going to have to go and find them first. I'm pretty sure he buried them deep into his collection and of all his models. But I think, again, like similar to the Tau changes, it makes an underpowered codex, gives it a great option to play with now.
Yeah,
the Reapers are so squishy. If they stand out in the open to shoot, they'll just die. If they're on the board and there's any kind of line of sight weapons, they will just die. And they're an expensive unit. So I think that's fine. It's obviously you got a good shell to put them in with the Wave Serpent. I think it's really interesting. I think it's a good buff for the Eldar, but I don't think it's anywhere game breaking whatsoever.
Well, also it's a 500-point unit, including the unit and also the Wave Serpent, and it's a 1 CP.
That's another way of putting it. Yeah,
and it's a
quarter of your army gone,
and it's a 1 CP needed every single turn as well.
Yeah, 500 points and 5 CP. That's a fair trade.
And if your opponent's got Vect on the table, so it's not broken. Yeah. No. If anything, it might even be a trap.
Yeah.
So who knows?
But it's interesting, it opens up nice little plays with other stuff as well. Like, could you? So I'm just freeballing here, just thinking of this little topic. Could your character, your troop unit, drop a banner on an objective in a movement phase, and then fire and fade back into the transport?
No, because fire and fade is done as soon as they fired.
Okay, cool. That's fine. That's good. But you could use little other units to hold objectives and jump back in the transport. There might be little plays in there that are a bit cuter than the obvious, probably was the 10 Dark Reapers fire and fading out of Wave Serpent.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I'd agree with that. Okay, we've got Nurglings, no feel no pain against mortal wounds anymore.
Good. I think Nurglings were being abused. They're so good for the 9th edition mission set because they can infiltrate, deploy all across all the mid-board objectives on an incredibly durable base. So a little workaround to start getting those units to be shift quicker for certain armies. I think that's a good change for the amount of points they are as well.
There's nothing worse than Nurgling, bashing when you just...
Yeah.
It's like whack-a-mole.
It's a slog.
Oh, it's painful. I like that. And then the next change is the CP farm with Harlequin. So it's gone back just to once per turn now, hasn't it? You can generate a CP back.
No, so you can now, that Warlord trait allows you to generate the Warlord trait when you roll a dice to the number of CP spent.
Yep.
You gain that many CP back rather than being restricted to just one.
Oh, I thought it was that anyway.
No, it was the rules as written previously. That Warlord trait didn't work.
Oh, okay, cool.
I think there might be a little bit of open wording on it that you could do it. You could keep doing that infinity number of times in a given battle round. So,
right, okay. So they've cleared it up there.
Yeah, so at the moment, they said that Warlord trait works and you can gain 2 or 3 CP back.
Nice.
But I think the way it's written is that you could roll, if your opponent uses 3 2 CP stratagems in a turn, that you get to roll off it every time and gain the CP back. So you could gain like 6, for example, in that exact.
Right, okay,
So
yeah.
I imagine that will be changed to battle round.
So it says here, the limit of gaining or refunding 1 CP, or 1 command point per battle round does not apply to any command points gained via this Warlord trait.
So it's either intentionally that you can gain
More
than, and you can use that Warlord trait more than once in the same battle round, or it might just be FAQ to say you can only gain CPs via this Warlord trait once per battle round, potentially. But we'll see.
Yeah, the limit of gaining or refunding 1 CP per battle round does not apply to gaining any command points via this Warlord trait. And I think for me that intention just means, obviously if it's a 2 CP stratagem, you roll a 2, you get 2 CPs back. Cool.
Yeah, but I think you could gain 6 to 8 to 10 in a turn.
Which I wouldn't think that's intended, so I wouldn't play it like that.
No, exactly. So I think lots of people get excited about it again. Just wait, see what happens in the next week or so, because I think, and I think we agree, that is likely to be restricted to you can use that ability once per battle round.
Yeah, I agree. That's how I'll play that, using Harlequins, yeah. Okay, cool. Next up, points. And this is the final section that we're going to be covering before we talk about any sort of other implications. Okay, so first points that you want to go over, let's talk about, two concerning ones, right? But go on, give us these.
I think there's some potential printing errors or little mistakes. 2 that have jumped out is the Reaver jet bikes and the Tau fast attack drones to me. The Reaver jet bikes are 10 points at the moment. And for some reason, the fast attack drone slots are 20 points per model, but then you can buy them with units for 10. It doesn't look quite right. And if it's something on the drones, and if something's too good to be true, Reaver jet bikes probably might be a mistake. So it's for 10 points a model, those Reaver jet bikes get outrageous the amount of models you can put on the base for the number of wounds you get. So I think, again, just maybe wait, just hold off, see if that document gets updated. And again, the Dark Eldar book's due out. Those bikes might be 1 wound or something. There might be 10 points. We don't know at this time.
Yeah. I mean, if they are, you got to think about it in perspective, right? When a Dire Avenger is 11 points,
yeah.
A Reaver jet bike that can move literally double, if not triple, with an extra wound is not going to be 1 point less. So, guys, it's probably an error. And there's also another little error here that I've spotted is with the Sisters. Their Dominions apparently can take multi-melters now.
There's been a few little ones like that where I think incorrectly added war gear onto certain units. And
basically, you can't take a weapon if it doesn't say on your datasheet you can take it. So even in the points section, if it has multi-melter, 20 points, I mean, it could say multi-melter, have 1,000,000 points back. If you can't get access to it, you can't get access to it. So
good point.
Think logically, guys, do consider the fact that there will be mistakes now and again. Like, I make typos, I make spelling mistakes, we all do. So yeah, guys, just chill. Happens.
It's a lot of numbers in that document. I'm just grateful that we have got points changes in between codexes. If you have any codex, you get a few little point changes. It opens up different options again. So let's be grateful for what we got, and give the guys a pat on the back and say, yeah, that they'll sort it out shortly.
I mean, it's not like, we're in a pandemic and people are working from home and communication is harder and, all these other things that are happening in the wider world. There are going to be mistakes, so let's give the guys a bit of a break. If it is a mistake, it's a mistake. Let's move on. Okay, cool. So next up, we've got, we'll whiz through these as quickly as we can. Okay, Dark Angels.
So I was doing my research ready for the show, and I know there's a little table that looks like a way of upgrading Dreadnoughts, Land Raiders, Storm Ravens to Deathwing, which I imagine might be like the Blood Angels one. So maybe that table wasn't meant to be in the FAQ document, but it was there. So that was very interesting.
Little sneak peek for you, maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. Then we'll just jump onto the Space Marines. Inceptors, Eradicators, and Outriders have all had a slight increase, which is good. I think that'll help stop spamming of these units.
Yeah, because a 5-point increase on, let's say you're taking a unit of 3 Eradicators. So for that guy that's got his Indomitus box, he's got, 3 Eradicators, he's not, or she is not going to care about 15-point increase. He'll find that, or she will find that somewhere else. But it's the people that were going, right, I'm going to run 18 Inceptors. That's who it's going to affect big time. I really like how they now give you different points per. So, for example, a weapon on one unit might be different to a weapon on another unit. And guys,
Yes.
That is intentional. And the reason for that is because of the max power of a unit that it can give out when you combine it with stratagems, buffs, warlord traits, all the other goodness. So, guys, if you are thinking, why is it 5 points on that model but 10 points on that model? It's probably because the potential damage output. So you're going to pay more tax for a unit that can either be taken in larger squad sizes and just much greater effectiveness. Okay, so look at the points that is displayed under that unit, and that's probably what you pay. Okay.
Yep, cool.
Yeah, so again, we're stopping spam, which is what we want. We want nice, balanced armies with, good commanders knowing how to use them, not just going, I'm going to take 18 Inceptors because they're,
Most efficient unit in the book.
Absolutely. Okay, cool. What's next? Tau.
So Crisis, Broadsides, Devilfish, the Hammerheads, Sky Rays, and the Planes have all come down. In particular, the tanks and flyers seem to have gone down a fair bit. A nice little shaving of points on the Devilfish, and the Broadsides as well. They've done very well on the points reductions. Commanders have gone up 10, which is fine because again because they're BS2 and the guns are all costed the same. In the case of Tau, the commander should be more expensive, so that's fine. Nurglings have gone up a few points, I believe, as well, which is good to help. Stop seeing 30 of them a table. You might only see 26 of them. It just helps in that matchup. And I think they were very aggressively pointed previously.
Yeah.
Just onto Necrons, the Reanimate is down to 80 points, which is, I think, very interesting with how durable warriors are. Yeah,
and I think the Reanimator, actually, I did a graph for our guys on the Academy. And a lot of people, because I know they gave Joe a lot of abuse on our battle report for taking Reanimators, okay? But here's the thing. The Reanimator isn't necessarily broken or like good or bad, right? What he does is when you think about a unit that its purpose is just to survive a battle round so it can completely replenish either at the end of an attack sequence or at the end of or at the start of the next turn with a gem or something, then what you need to try and do is keep that unit alive as long as you possibly can. And when your opponent has only a limited amount of actions in their army, either it can see it, it's in range, or the number of shots per unit, having a force multiplier there massively changes those statistics and those odds to allow you to survive that turn, allowing that unit of warriors to actually do their intended purpose, which is stay alive, reanimate again at the start of the turn. So it's incredibly important. Or if your opponent's actually wasting actions in vital shooting at that reanimator to kill it, then that's less actions in shots that are going into the unit that it actually wants to destroy and get rid of. So again, I think for 80 points, what a fantastic unit. Really, really like it.
Yeah, I think it's tasty now. Then the Nightbringer's gone up slightly, which I'm not sure it needed to. I think the Catans are very pricey, but if you could spam them, they become a bit of an issue, I think. But it's a strange one.
I think with those, in a competitive sense, a good player knows how to deal with it.
Yeah.
But a player that is maybe new to the game, or in their first few months of playing, actually they can be quite challenging, and they can be a real, like when back when we started first ever playing, and I wanted to put a knight on the table.
Oh yeah.
In old Dan, he'd be like, "Oh, why are you bringing a knight?" I can't remember what Necron shenanigans he was running at the time, but yeah, it's one of those things. I think it can give a little bit of a feel bad when you've got such powerful rules and interactions. Yeah.
Cool. Just on the Custodes, we've picked out the bikes have gone down, which is nice because they're very pricey. I think that reflects that the Hurricane Bolters are nowhere near as efficient as they once used to be. So I think that's a nice little change in the Custodes.
Yep.
Sister of Battle have done quite well, haven't they, Steve?
Well, I mean, not if you listen to the internet, but yeah, I think they've done very well. Personally, for my list, Repentia have gone up a point, but Zephyrin have gone down 2 points, which is amazing because I really like the Zephyrins, and I run 30 of them. So, yeah, I think it's super strong that obviously we're starting to see, those changes there. I mean, I actually quite like the points for them anyway, so actually it's only a nice little buff. You've put the multi-melter girls, is that right? The Retributors?
I think they might have gone up.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to check that one, but there's been a points. I'd be surprised if they've gone down because they're so good. So I think they may have gone up a little bit. So just double check if you are a Sisters player that your multi-melters are the same points or have gone up or come down.
Yeah, they're such a good unit as well. So even if they have gone up a little bit, it's not...
you still take them, yeah.
They're so strong, yeah.
Dark Eldar and Eldar. It's not so obvious, I don't think, this one. I think most of the stuff stayed the same, but having a chat with Ben, it looks like lots of the troops have dropped in points, which makes your battalion tax cheaper.
Yeah.
Which is always a good place to be, because you want to be taking your battalion.
Yeah, or it allows you to push more troops in because both of those armies quite struggle with holding objectives, so making them a little bit cheaper allows them to actually fulfill their role a little bit easier. So I think it's a nice change, like, bringing down the Dire Avenger points a little bit. It's a nice subtle adjustment, which again isn't game breaking, but good.
Yeah. Gene Stealer Cult, relatively untouched, but looks like Aberrants have gone down a little bit, as well as some of the special weapons, like in particular the Hand Flamers have gone down a point. So, the Aberrants they went up and up and up, and now they're starting to come back down. So that's a step in the right direction. But shame. I would like to see a little bit more of the Gene Stealer Cult to try and get them back on the table. But hopefully, the next round that they might get a little bit more love. Yeah,
or it could be that, again, they probably don't want to change rules to make everything cheaper necessarily, but how can we change things like the mission? Well, we've just seen that with Bring It Down. So actually, maybe Gene Stealer Cult get a nice little boost from the mission change and a subtle adjustment from the points rather than one massive swing like, oh, everything's cheaper. Oh, and then the mission's cheaper. Because that's why we would end up with, Gene Stealer Cult are now broken now. So I think it's nice that they're making these small tweaks, adjusting. Yeah.
Next on the list is NIDS. So I think NIDS are the winner.
Oh, yeah.
Out of everyone. Big claims. So Hive Guard, Hive Tyrants, Warriors, Carnifexes, and a few more of the big beasties have all come down in the Codex in points, which is great. Some considerable savings, in particular on the Hive Tyrant, who was way overcosted, so that's fair enough. So you've opened up a lot more points there. With the change to Bring It Down, you're all of a sudden giving away less kill points. And some of the new Forge World stuff for them is also very strong. So I think they've got a huge boost, and I'm going to spend a bit of time to look into that in a bit more detail because I'm very interested in what this looks like now.
And we've just got a new NID army.
Oh, that's good. Well, I'm hoping it's next on the painting table because I'll be excited to give them a spin.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. We've got all that stuff actually. So
and Jake's our resident NIDS player as well, who's on the team. So I'm sure he's frantically writing up lists as we speak.
I really like big units of warriors. I think they've got play. So I think it's going to be interesting to see where that happens.
No, that's cool. So just on to Orcs, the big mecha custom force field. Looks like he's gone down, but I think they made the same mistake previously with the custom field points not being included as war gear. So there's maybe an error. So just keep an eye out just to see if that gets FAQ'd. And the Met gun doesn't include gun costs in their profile, so we're not sure what's kind of happened there. The model's still in production and still being made by GW, as far as I'm aware. So I think that might have just been an oversight to sort of not include those different gun profiles like the smash gun and things like that. So again, just keep an eye out for hopefully a change will come and pick that up.
Yep, and then finally Chaos. So Chaos have seen a few nice little changes, and they're quite subtle. So the first one is on their Terminators. Terminators used to be 31 points. I mean, I'm telling you this because I've got a full army of them. So a Terminator used to be 31 points, including the Combi Bolter and also the Lightning Claw. Okay. Now, because you paid, a certain amount of points for each one, so it was like 5 points for a claw, 3 points for a weapon. So what they're doing now, I think Games Workshop, to make it easier for us in terms of their points, is just adjusting slightly how they're, utilizing this scheme of the different points. Now, you look at it and you think, okay, well, and again, I don't want people to look at this and go get annoyed by it, but I'm telling you kind of how it's how it interacts, because I got scared when I looked at the Harlequin point change actually, and it figured out it was actually the same. So the unit cost of the Terminators is 28 points. So it's only 3 points less than 31. And then I was looking for my weapons. I was like, oh my God, Terminators have gone up. I couldn't believe it. But then I looked and I realized actually all their weapons that are either just a power weapon, so you're talking power maul, power maul, power axe, power sword, a chain axe, or a combi bolter, are all free.
Ooh.
Yeah. So it's only 5 additional points now for a chain fist or power fist, nice. And you're paying 5 points for all your combi weapons. So all your base weapon is getting it now for free. So yeah, they're now just 28 points a model flat. So I'm saving 3 points per model. So in an army where I take 30 of them, I've just
90
saved
points in your back pocket.
Absolutely. Also, Demon Prince is down 10,
decent.
And the Thunder Hammer on the Chaos Lord is down as well. So that used to be 40 points, and now I think it's dropped to 20.
Nice.
So again, some nice subtle adjustments there, because you want to take a Chaos Lord with a Thunder Hammer, but at 40 points, you're like, I don't want to pay that sort of tax. But you're paying, the reason why it was 40 was because obviously in previous edition it was -3, now it's -2. Yeah, I think it's a good change. So yeah, Chaos getting some love, which is good. So that concludes our points, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's that sums up all the changes from the FAQ and all the erratas that come out this week.
And so next week we're going to be talking about Tau. We're going to be doing a really good overview into the Codex, and also diving into all the play testing that you've been doing with Tau, Jack.
Yeah.
What you've been utilizing, getting used to, and how you're seeing more and more success now with the Tau, and how they're becoming a real. I'm not going to lie, I'm a bit scared for next time I play them. So
I think you should be. I think you should be.
I'm interested into your mindset, how it's changed, because I would say you went through, you kind of went off Tau a little bit, but now you're really into it. So I'm really interested to hear next week how that's gone for you.
I think it just transition from 8th to 9th. I was a bit downtrodden with it all, but I've put the graft in now, and I feel like I'm in a better place. It'd be great to share what I've learned and how I've gone about it, and we could talk Tau in all its glory next week.
Yeah, looking forward to that. But, I think what a lot of people are going to get value from, even if you're not a Tau player, is first of all understanding how Tau works, how to beat them, but also the mindset in the sort of patterns of behavior that you've gone through, Jack, in order to help you do well with a, non sort of, I don't want to say popular, but maybe not extremely competitive army. Right, so maybe an underperforming faction. How are you doing so well with it? And that's what I want to find out more about, because I think there's going to be a lot of lessons there for everybody to learn. So anyway, guys, thanks so much for listening. Jack, thanks so much for all of your input today, all the prep work that you did for this. You did an absolutely fantastic job, and it's been an absolute pleasure once again. Also, thanks to everybody that's, subscribes to the podcast, gives us reviews. It really, really helps us, boosts in terms of, where we are in the rankings. I want to become the number one, 40k related podcast. I really do. I want to push for that, which is why we've invested in the audio equipment. So hopefully you guys appreciate the audio improvements we've made as well. We've had some great comments on that. We're really putting a lot of time in terms of our content scripts and also the flow of it all and all the prep work that we do now. So hopefully, guys, you really appreciate that. And I really hope you guys who are in lockdown, again, it's difficult timing, but look, focus on what you can, learn more about the hobby, consider joining the academy if you want a community to be part of. It's only helping, more and more people that are in lockdown who can't necessarily play, but want to get sharp, want to be part of a community. Or, if you don't want to do that and you want to just get, spend this time getting your hobby sorted, look at getting some terrain, upgrading your table, or what you could do is obviously dive deep into your hobby, get those armies painted ready for the tabletop, yeah? So anyway, once again, thank you very much, and we'll see you next week on the Competitive 40k podcast. Take care.